Now that I'm done analyzing my Common App essay, I'll be going over my Brown essays. So the very first one that I'm going to start with is the extracurricular essay, and this is 150 words maximum, and it's used by a lot of different schools, so that's why I'm going to start with it. And the prompt is, please briefly elaborate on one of your extracurricular activities or work experiences that was particularly meaningful to you. So it is very open-ended. And here was my essay. To find me, look for the girl reciting her speech by talking to the wall. My hands mime every word, matching my eyes full of passion. By writing every word I speak, I ensure my personality shines alongside my messages. Previously, I hesitated while sharing my personal opinions, as I worried others would disagree and dismiss my ideas. I forced myself to peacefully follow others and accepted that my weak personality could not thrive in speech and debate. Although disagreements build walls, I soon learned my argumentative defenses broke them down. Today, I communicate my concerns about the Lebanese wars threatening my family and poverty gripping local Toledo children. I have a platform to establish a connection between my topic and everyone listening, so I speak for those who cannot. Speech and debate teaches me that opposition cannot prevent my movement away from walls and onto larger platforms. So yeah, like I said, this essay has a very strict 150-word limit, which is really hard to adhere to right from the start. So what I recommend for this essay right away is actually developing it and not worrying about the word limit. So for me, I started off with about 300 words, I want to say, and then afterwards I cut it down to the main things. Because honestly, it's really hard to just tell yourself from the start, get into really condensed sentences that describe the matter. Instead, it's easier to kind of summarize a little bit and have some space and then go in and condense everything. So before I even started this essay, I knew I wanted to talk about speech and debate from the start, just because it was really impactful on me. I did it for 4 years, absolutely loved it at the regional, state, and national level. So it was definitely a really important activity. So I really wanted to showcase that. So basically, I started this essay, as you can tell in my first paragraph, by setting the scene and providing the author with imagery of me practicing in front of a wall. Now, if you're a speaker, you'll understand this concept, but for everyone else, basically people practice their speeches in front of the wall. That way they can get feedback and kind of know what their timing's like and how they present in front of an audience. So I wanted to set the stage or the imagery in the situation with my essay, with me kind of doing that since it was a classic speechy thing to do. The next thing I did in my next paragraph was talking about my mindset before joining the activity. So I basically described how I was hesitant, mostly because I was afraid of speaking, which you can tell from my Common App essay, if they remembered that. And also I was worried about other people disagreeing with me or telling me I was wrong, and me kind of having to think of things on the spot, which can be implied from my essay. I was just really worried about being proven wrong and having to kind of defend myself in that situation. However, the next paragraph talks about how I use speech and debate and the things that it taught me in my community. I basically talked about how once I finally joined, I realized that those walls, I could basically break them down with my voice and the defenses that I made in the competition. And then just beyond what speech and debate taught me and what I did within that activity, I connected it to my community and how I suddenly started to make my voice heard about local matters and things that matter to me and my culture and my family. So in this essay, I talk about how I used what I learned from my extracurricular to help those around me and basically speak for those who cannot. Because after all, you can grow within your extracurricular, you can do well, you can earn awards and stuff like that. But what really makes you stand out is when you show what you learned from your extracurricular and how you used it to help others. Whether it was you helping teammates who were catching a little behind, or teammates who had just joined, or just someone who needed help in that situation, or you expanding the skills that you learned in that extracurricular and bringing them to your community or other extracurriculars or events that you did. This really shows that impact instead of just someone basically bragging about all the awards that they won within the extracurricular and mentioning them in that essay, rather than just talking about things that actually matter, considering the awards are already on your Common App. So I would encourage you to use the space wisely and think about the impact that you had outside of your extracurricular, or the ways that your extracurricular impacted you to actually learn about things and see how you can help out around you. But anyways, now let's talk about the open curriculum essay. So for those of you guys who don't know, Brown is really well known within the Ivy League and within all U.S. colleges in general for its open curriculum. So at many schools, they have a general education requirement. So for these schools, you kind of go in knowing no matter what major you choose, you're going to have to take 2 science classes, 2 language classes, 2 social studies classes, 2 English classes, 2 math classes, etc. Those kind of requirements that you have to take just to get out of the way before you can actually learn about your major and the things that you want to learn about. And then there are schools that have core curriculums like Columbia and UChicago, they're very well known for these. So these are classes that they strictly tell you have to take literature in the Middle Ages or just something like that I made up. Just like a really specific class that has a correlation between what they want you to learn before going into that institution. So Brown has neither of these. In fact, Brown actually has no requirements whatsoever, except, I mean, they want you to have 2 English classes, but there are some classes that fulfill this requirement that are in the history department or the science department. They just have to have a like writing intensive part to it. But other than that, Brown has no requirements whatsoever. So you can go in and take classes that apply to your major right away. You don't have to basically waste time, I guess, taking classes that you're not interested in. And this is really valuable because you get to design your own education. There's no one telling you what you have to take or what you can't take. Technically, you can take whatever you want. And like, for example, if you're going down a pre-med or a pre-law path, there might be specific classes that you do have to take to apply to that, depending on like the institution and everything. But other than that, Brown doesn't actually require anything of you. And I think this is really great because you can walk into your classes knowing that the classmates you have in there actually want to be there because they chose to be there. They were not forced to be there just to fulfill a requirement. And this just makes classes more engaging, and it just makes it a more supportive and fun environment in general. So yeah, open curriculum is really amazing, and it's definitely a huge part of the Brown experience. The prompt for this 250-word open curriculum essay is: Brown's open curriculum allows students to explore broadly while also diving deeply into their academic pursuits. Tell us about an academic interest or interest that excites you and how you might use the open curriculum to pursue it. Here's my essay. My first experience with a microscope in 6th grade offered me the luxury of looking beyond textbook images. I watched cells become more defined with the turn of a knob and switch of a lens. This humble revelation instantly captured my interest in the sciences, especially microbiology. Biology's curriculum was never ending and covered everything from cells to large organisms. One day, I could examine the virulence of lytic viruses, and the next day, I could study speciation over the decades. Although humanities and the sciences seem distinct, biology owes history for its existence. History bridges time and science, as it displays how discoveries have built upon each other. For example, while creating new influenza vaccinations, scientists inspect historical trial and error. This mutualistic relationship has intensified my interest in studying history alongside science. At Brown, my goals for interdisciplinary learning are viable and encouraged. The school's open curriculum welcomes diversity in a college education while empowering students to study subjects that might not always correlate with each other. At Brown, I will not feel obligated to choose either the sciences or the arts. I can experiment with my courses and focus on learning what I love, rather than stressing about whether a class meets my concentration's requirements. During one semester, I can study the principles of immunology. The following semester, I can take Professor Emily A. Owen's class, Narratives of Slavery. With no restraints barring me from studying what I love, I know I will thrive in Brown's academic curriculum. So this essay is one where you can be more straightforward instead of making it like super artsy and including analogies and stuff like that. But if you do want to do that, I mean, you can. It's just really a straightforward question asking you what you want to study and why the open curriculum will let you do it. But you have to keep in mind, you're addressing the open curriculum here. Thus, if you want to study like biology and chemistry in college, then that's great. However, I would actually advise you to focus on your interdisciplinary interests if possible. So that means like finding interests within the STEM and the humanities or social sciences and physical sciences, things that don't like always correlate with each other that you might be able to find a correlation between, because technically you can study biology and chemistry together at literally any other college in the US. The thing that makes Brown special is you can literally study things that do not correlate at all. They're in completely different fields without having to worry about like if you can fit it into your schedule and stuff. Like you can just, instead of just taking one class in that, you can take multiple in both of those different subjects. So for that reason, I would definitely focus on interdisciplinary interests. So for me, that was history and biology, like two things that don't really work together all the times, but I was able to find like a correlation between the two of them. And this really shows why you take advantage of the open curriculum, because when you think about it, everyone who applies to this school is going to say like, yeah, I would love the open curriculum. Like, why else wouldn't you? Because you're technically applying to a school with it. However, you have to explain why you'd be able to take advantage of it with the things that you already like and the things that you plan on studying or taking a couple classes in. Also, another thing for this essay, please do not refer to Brown's prestige or world-renowned professors or Ivy League title or any of that, because number one, it doesn't really address what this prompt is asking you to do, which is describe the open curriculum, not describe why Brown. Instead, this is asking you specifically why the open curriculum, why the academics at Brown. And secondly, it kind of comes off as elitist, so please do not mention any of this stuff, because technically it shows that you're in the school and you're into it just for the title rather than actually studying at it and gaining and kind of contributing to the community. So definitely avoid that. And also another tip, I would actually advise you to include specific classes within this because it shows that you did your research. And if you need to find these classes, you can literally just look up Brown course catalog, or you can go to the website cab.brown.edu because that's also the full course catalog and it's completely open to the public. You don't have to log in or anything, and you can kind of just like see what you're interested in and like talk about if there are any classes that interest you and mark them within your essay. You do not have to mention any clubs or activities or anything in this first essay because this essay once again focuses on just the open curriculum. However, the next essay I'm about to talk about, which is the community essay, does focus on clubs and activities and that kind of stuff. So the prompt for this 250-word essay is, at Brown, you will learn as much from your peers outside the classroom as in academic spaces. How will you contribute to the Brown community? And here is my essay. My academic interests are strange, but I stay true to what I love and share my interests with everyone around me. After all, who doesn't want to hear fun facts about things like the tapeworm diet, Kuru, and the birthday paradox? Although others may initially feel confused when I gush about how cool botulism is, through a biological perspective, of course, I hope to encourage others to express their interests on campus. Other than contributing fun and bizarre facts, I plan on becoming involved in a variety of organizations at Brown. After 5 years of participating in Science Olympiad, I want to be on the other side of the competition, making tests and planning the event. Thus, I intend to join the Brown University Science Olympiad group to organize their February Invitational. This ensures that high schoolers like myself can benefit from the activity. Additionally, I aim to expand beyond my speech and history performances and join Comic Sans. This improv group would allow me to practice improvisational speaking beyond what I learned in drama class. Following 6 years of community service in my library, I have developed an appreciation for helping students around me achieve their goals. For this reason, I want to join Best Buddies at Brown. This group focuses on making an impact on adults with disabilities. Just as I will learn from the peers around me at Brown, I plan on learning about the stories these adults have to tell and being their listening ear. So this essay is definitely very quirky and fun compared to the other essays at other schools or just other Brown essays. But Brown really likes quirky students, whether it's inside the classroom or outside the classroom. So don't be afraid to show off your sense of humor here, your fun personality, or the things that make you you, like the little quirky things that you usually don't talk about. But what I will say is the biggest thing to keep in mind within this essay is that you're talking about what you'd contribute to campus, not just what you'd take from it. So a lot of people make that like misconception that they can just talk about clubs they'd want to join and things they want to be involved in, but they don't actually talk about like what they would do within those clubs or the things they would bring to the table. Like I made sure with every single club I mentioned, I talked about an initiative that I did in high school that I'd be able to bring to that club. So Science Olympiad, I did it in high school so I could bring my skills from my high school competitions to planning the Invitational. For Comic Sans, the improv group, I talked about my performances through history and speech and debate and everything. For history, I was talking about National History Day and how I would basically take those performances and bring them to the Comic Sans stage since it's an improv group. And for the volunteer group, Best Buddies at Brown, I talked about my volunteer work at the library, which I also talk about in depth in another essay, just in case they have questions on that. And I connect it to Brown. So for all of these, I have reasons for choosing these clubs. I don't just like pick them out of nowhere. I justify it, and that's something that I would tell you to do too. Because otherwise, how are they going to know you're passionate about it and that you're actually going to join these clubs? Like, too many kids go about these essays without talking about the things that they can bring to the table, whether it's their talents or skills or upbringings or just their general new perspective to Brown. Because in reality, Brown's a diverse place. And so they love people that are unique and people who have diverse backgrounds and things like that. So I definitely encourage you to think about your diversity. And this does not have to be racial or ethnic diversity. Rather, it's just your personality and the things that you're interested in and the things that you can kind of bring to this environment, because that's what the community essay really is all about. If you're having trouble really thinking about like what impact you'd bring to these clubs and organizations and stuff like that, I'd encourage you to look up these clubs and organizations on social media or just Google in general, because then you'll find their social media, and then think about the activities that they've done in the past and maybe like pitch your own ideas. Like maybe you want to start something else within that club, or you have an idea of something that you did in high school with a similar club that you want to bring to the table. And a lot of the times I find that Brown students are like more than willing to help other people. So what you can do is also contact Brown students, whether you find them from LinkedIn or just social media like Twitter or Instagram in general. And to find a lot of Brown students, I advise students to look up #Brown and then 2024 or 2023, because a lot of kids like post their acceptances or everything. So I'd ask those people like what clubs they're in if you need to, and like what activities they partake in with those clubs, because I really think that can give you like a starting point for thinking about like what you could bring to the table specifically for this club. And also, you don't have to like really bring something super unique. Like, I'm sure for some of these clubs, the admissions office does not know every single thing they do. So instead, you could mention an event and talk about how you'd help with it, as long as you show that you've done your research and you know why you want to do these clubs and you're not just like mentioning them just to mention them. The community essay can definitely be more creative if you want it to be, and I definitely encourage you guys to actually go that curricula route, since Brown is known for like liking students who do have that sense of personality. Next, we're going to move on to the home essay, and this 250-word essay has this prompt. Tell us about a place or community you call home. How has it shaped your perspective? And this was my essay. Since 2013, one of my favorite hobbies has been encouraging library patrons to join the summer reading club. Following 6 years of this volunteer mission, my public library resembled home. I believe the best feeling is seeing a child eagerly chart their reading progress while gushing over the new titles they rented. However, my branch serves the most underprivileged area in Toledo. Many patrons walk 20 to 30 minutes as they lack access to a vehicle. The children in these families have a considerable disadvantage when it comes to their education, due to insufficient public school funding. I volunteer to provide a level of support for these kids that is not guaranteed to them in life. As these kids strive to finish reading challenges, they overcome barriers and show me that one's learnings and consciousness relies on their efforts. Last summer, I combined my love for speech and debate with my volunteering. During the library's free lunches, I organized and played speech games with the kids involved. We commenced the summer by finishing each other's sentences and concluded by acting out stories. My activity changed my perspective on the definition of impactful. I watched the self-proclaimed shy kid end the summer by audibly participating. I watched my program grow from 3 kids to 20. With every new participant, the group's liveliness flourished. My pride in these kids rivals what I previously believed was the best feeling. Believe it or not, this essay was actually my favorite one to write, just because I think there's so much room for creativity within this prompt. So I think a lot of kids go the standard like basic route with this, and they say like, oh, my family is my home, or like this classroom at school is my home because I love this teacher. They always like let me confide in them and stuff like that. But like, I'm not saying anything's bad with those like routes. Like, you can definitely make it unique if you try to do that. But I think these essays basically give you the opportunity to like expand beyond that. Like, I know some people that said their imagination was their home, or just something that you really wouldn't expect. And it actually worked out really well. And the biggest thing with this essay is you also have to show how it changed your perspective. And so a lot of the times with those more creative like answers to that, you really see like a great shift in perspective that you really wouldn't normally see in the other responses. Also, a big thing, since I did mention that second part, so many students forget to answer the second part of the question. I didn't think it would be as prevalent as it actually is, but please, please, please actually answer how it changed your perspective. And for that, I think people kind of assume that the admissions officer is going to know what they mean. They don't actually like explicitly answer it, but they kind of imply a little bit. But I think if you actually like show before and after, that shows a change in perspective, or just impacting your perspective in general. Like, if you flat out say it, like for me, I literally said in here that my activity changed my perspective on the definition of impactful. And I talked about how I had the shy kid at the beginning of the summer who like barely spoke, and then they ended the summer with audible participation. And this definitely shows like growth over time. And I just don't think I see that in a lot of essays. So I would definitely advise you to do that. And while I'm on that topic, I would actually recommend also saying the word home explicitly within your essay. Because I've read too many essays where it's like kind of implied, but you're not really sure what they're referring to as the home. And if you do go the creative route, it really helps if you explicitly mention like, what are you referring to as your home in this situation? Because sometimes it really isn't evident because there's just so much going on. But if you use the word home, like there's really nothing wrong with it, and you're just making it that much easier for the admissions officer to just scan your essay real quick, identify that you answer the prompt, and then move on. Because in reality, they don't have that much time to just like go through and like scan it like very, very carefully, then like reread it and then analyze it. There's not that much time in general, so I would definitely make it as easy as possible for them. For me, I really like the way I did this essay just because it did combine my passion for speech and debate that I've talked about in so many essays, and my passion for volunteering at the library, which I've done for such a long time. I said 6 years, I believe, within this essay, yeah, but now it's been 7, and so I definitely love doing it. And this really goes to show that, like, in my extracurricular essay, when I said that speech and debate was really impactful and that I was speaking for those who could not, Like, I was really doing that within my community. I was trying to use the skills that I had learned within speech and debate, the activity that I talked so much about in my applications, and transferred all those skills to my community, to trying to better myself and better the people around me and really make those opportunities for people who don't have them. So for me, like, building the speech and debate program was really important. So I really liked my approach to this essay. I would tell you guys, when choosing a home, pick a home that's really dear to you, one that you actually really care about, but also one that you have a role within, like an active role, not just like a passive role where you're just involved, but you don't really do anything. Because if you pick one where you have an active role, you can characterize yourself as a leader. You can characterize yourself as selfless, or even just like as kind, which I tried to do within my essay, just to show that you have a heart and that you're giving back to the community. And a lot of the times when you do pick a home that you have an active position in, it really kind of showcases you without you even trying to, in the actions that you describe and the things that you've organized and done and that you basically detail within this essay.